Hi everyone, welcome to another special video that we're doing here. This isn't going to necessarily be gaming related, but a little bit geek culture related, collector related, and it's an item that's very dear to me. Recently we enjoyed the 30th anniversary of the original Transformers the movie, which came out in 1986. Now, this is a film that's very dear to me, big part of my childhood. I was a massive Transformers fan, but more importantly, I was a massive fan of the score for the film, the soundtrack by Vince DiCola, who's one of the most talented and underrated musicians that I've enjoyed listening to in my lifetime. Now, for those of you who are slightly less familiar with his work, he also did the soundtrack to Rocky IV, and prior to that did Staying Alive, which wasn't a great movie, but it did have a pretty good score. So, for those of you who've not listened to it, I highly recommend that you go out and try it. But for those of you, of course, here because you're a fan of the series, we're going to have a look at the very special 30th anniversary edition of the soundtrack that was released on vinyl quite recently. It's a beautiful collector's piece. I'm ecstatic to own it. So let's jump in right now and take a closer look. So before we get into the actual vinyl collection, prior to the release of this vinyl, I had the soundtrack on CD. Here it is. It's one of my prized possessions, one of the CDs I've listened to perhaps more than any other in my lifetime. And I picked this up in the late 90s, but when the emergence of the internet was still quite a new thing. So just hopping onto Amazon to go and buy your favourite rare CD was not really the done thing. So I had to travel far and wide to actually go and buy that. I had to travel from the north of England down to London to the HMV at Trocadero Centre to buy that. And delighted that I did. It's gotten plenty of mileage in that time and more than paid for itself. But now we've got a very special release, something far more collectible, far more pretty, easy on the eye, and again I'm really excited to show you this. This is the 30th anniversary edition of the vinyl soundtrack to Transformers the movie. As you can see, it's got this beautiful cover with the Autobot logo, and I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but there's an embossed Optimus Prime in the background there. A lot of love has gone into that. It's a beautiful piece. And we're going to have a look on some of the goodies on the inside as well, because it certainly doesn't just stop with the cover, I'm glad to say. Let's delve in a little bit deeper. So, on the inside, you've got this beautiful slip cover art here, which depicts a very sort of graphic novel style of the Transformers in action there. Those, of course, are the Autobots. And the amount of detail in that is truly staggering. It's a really beautiful piece of work. So fans of the series, never mind the musical, get a little bit excited over that one. And then if we go a bit deeper, the cover is actually reversible. So we can have a Decepticon version, as you see there, and it's got Megatron embossed in the background. Hope that is picked up. I apologise if it's not, but I'm using an iPhone to record this, which is a little bit amateurish, I know, but beautiful work. And again, the inside slipcover has a Decepticon version. It's got Galvatron, Megatron, Soundwave and Starscream in beautiful detail and glory. Absolutely love that stuff. And then is the big payoff. The actual vinyls themselves are an absolutely incredible work of art, which I'm going to show you right now. And this is the bit I was most excited about, I must admit. So let's whip these out and show you what we have. So this is the first disc, Autobot Red. And again, it's got an Autobot logo, sort of translucent hologram background. Really hope that's picked up. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Again, I'll flip it on the other side because it might be slightly easier to see. Again, apologies if the camera can't pick that up, but absolutely gorgeous piece. And of course the disc is ever so slightly translucent, so you can see through it ever so slightly. It's really pretty. Absolutely lovely work there by the team who produced this. You can tell it's a real labour of love for these guys. And then of course we have a Decepticon's own disc for side 2. Let's get in there and dig that one out. And this of course is in Decepticon Purple, so it's going to look really cool. And this is a real nice work of art. It's got this really wavy, gorgeous hologram pattern to it. Looks really nice. And on the rear side, a Decepticon logo, translucently embossed onto the disc again. Beautiful work here. Stunning collector's piece. Really, really pleased to have it. And of course the music still sounds as good as it ever did. Vince DiCola, Spectre General, Lion, all did absolutely beautiful work. Stan Bush, of course, who sung the main theme of Touch, which of course appeared in Boogie Nights ever so briefly. But it's an absolutely gorgeous piece of work. There's no reason not to pick this up if you're a big Transformers fan. And of course, just to round off the presentation of this particular package, there's a nice insert here from Vince DiCola himself, which I think was taken from the BotCon conference in April 2007. I'll just read this out in brief for you. The producers of Transformers the movie first approached me in early 1986. They were familiar with some of my previous film scores and felt my composing style would be effective for their new Transformers animated film. Up until that point I had very little knowledge of Transformers, other than being vaguely aware of the toy line. I was on the bad enthusiasm for my music and accepted the offer to score the movie. Thank goodness for that, eh? From the beginning I found this to be a very challenging project. The first surprise was realising that about 75 minutes worth of music would be required. This amount of music was not particularly uncommon for a full-length animated film, but was certainly more than I'd ever been asked to produce for one movie. Another surprise nearly threw me into a panic mode. I was told that I would be writing most of the music not to picture, as is usually the case, but to storyboards, which is far from the norm. So rather than providing with the finished animated cells, they just gave him roughly composed pieces of art that roughly guided where it's going to go. So the fact that it actually came out as well as it did is pretty impressive. I traded in my initial stock for more of a can-do attitude and told the directors and producers, oh sure, no problem, I can do that, good on you Vince. Thanks to the help of a great team of people, including fellow producer Ed Fruge, engineer Tony Papa, and all the great musicians who played on the soundtrack, I was able to create a score that I continue to be proud of, and one that I believe holds up quite well even after all these years. And Vince, we agree, and we thank you so much for doing that for us. One of the most pleasant aspects of the project was the evident trust that the producers and director had in my ability. This allowed me the freedom to write and play and produce music without their constant oversight. I assumed that when the score was finished and the film released, my involvement with Transformers had come to an end. But a few years later, I was approached by Glenn Hallett, the executive producer of Transformers convention known as BotCon, who asked me to appear as a special guest at the convention in Rochester, New York, the following year. I had a hard time believing that there was much interest left in Transformers, but just out of curiosity, I accepted the invitation. And when I arrived, I was totally amazed that even after all the years the movie had been released, Transformers was still so popular and attracted thousands of fans to the convention. Glenn had another revelation for me. Not only was there a tremendous amount of interest in the Transformers franchise in general, but still a massive amount of interest in the 1986 movie, and more specifically, my score, of course. I never had performed for such an enthusiastic audience before. Because of that, my first experience, I've appeared at several more Transformers conventions over the years, but that first one in '97 really holds a special place in my heart. It's so gratifying to see that my contribution to Transformers the movie has continued to hold such value for money for so many years. I'm very pleased that Sony Music Entertainment has asked me to be involved in the reissue of the original soundtrack. Special thanks goes to Glenn Hallett for years of service to the wonderful legion of Transformers fans and for keeping the culture alive. And a very special thanks to all of my fans for your continued support and encouragement. This has been quite a ride. Vince DiCola seems like a very humble man, continues to do great work. If you've not heard his scores for various iPhone games, including Angry Birds, Transformers, really good stuff. Maybe not quite as good, or at least not the emotional connection or nostalgic connection that we have to Transformers the movie, but it's all wonderful music nonetheless. So just want to say a big thank you to Vince DiCola himself for dedicating a tremendous amount of his life to creating this work for us, and still does very well by the Transformers the movie fan base. We're extremely grateful. And for those who are interested in learning more about Vince DiCola, I did an article for the Failed Critics Movie podcast website talking about the career and my love for Vince DiCola and his body of work. If you're interested in reading that, I'll include a link down below. Please go and visit that, it would be really appreciated. So guys, thank you for checking out my video. I did this as a means to create awareness, just because when I bought this disc, I kind of stumbled across it by accident. I happened to see something that Vince Nicola retweeted on Twitter. Hadn't seen any news about it myself other than that, so the chances are there's a lot of Transformers fans who are perhaps unaware of this, and I think it's worth checking out. You can get it for around the £20 mark, which is going to be about $28 to $30. I think any fan of the soundtrack to Transformers the movie absolutely must get this, so please go and check it out. If you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and if you could subscribe to my channel, it would be really appreciated. Thank you ever so much, guys.